Do you have an MGB that you're restoring? Are you trying to determine how best to prepare it for the upcoming paint and body work? Are you thinking about replacing the interior of your MGB as part of that process? Do you want to understand which pieces need to come out and in what order? Are you considering painting the engine bay as part of the restoration process? Do you want to understand what hoses, lines, and components need to be removed before the engine bay can be painted? Perhaps you're considering repainting the interior of the trunk. Although limited in comparison to the engine bay and the interior, do you want to understand which pieces need to be removed in order to prepare the trunk to be painted? And when it comes to the exterior of the car, there are so many pieces that make up the bright work. Are you looking to understand which ones of those need to be removed and which ones can stay? Stick around and find out the answer to all of these questions on this episode of Maggie's Makeover. Welcome to another episode of Maggie's Makeover, which is an epic journey about the restoration of my beloved 1972 MGB by the name of Maggie. Maggie's been off the road for over 40 years, and we started her restoration over 2 years ago. Now, this is a very special episode, and I'm joined by a gentleman in the studio by the name of Rich Grace.
Oh.
So, Rich, tell people while you're here.
Well, I hit that fancy subscriber button that you have on Maggie's Makeover, and I got an email, told me to come to the studio. That's why I'm here.
And so, what Rich isn't telling you is that he is actually the 1,000th subscriber to the channel.
Impressive.
And so, before we begin the episode, this is just a celebration to thank everybody, to thank all of you out there, and to thank Rich for being the 1,000th subscriber. So in honor of you all, we're gonna open up this fine bottle of champagne to celebrate. And Rich, I know you've never been in the studio before and haven't done this, but I'm not gonna go all Formula One and spray you with this thing.
Please.
So as I'm opening this up, Rich, maybe you can tell our viewers why you subscribe to the channel.
Sure, it was the YouTube algorithm that brought me to Maggie's Makeover. And I'm telling you, do yourself a favor. If you're working on an MGB, if you want to drive an MGB, tune into the channel. Whoa, that was a good year. Woo! Wow.
Must be a good year, Rich. So now that you've actually seen a number of the videos, Rich, why did you subscribe?
I've found the episodes to be extremely engaging. You present the material very clearly. The information's been fantastic. You've taken a mundane subject matter and you've injected humor into it. You entertain the audience. Unique character development from studio to garage. You've done a phenomenal job, Steve, really.
You know what, Rich? Those are kind comments, especially coming from an author. But you know, Rich, there's something that I noticed. There's a number of people that actually view the videos, but they haven't subscribed to the channel.
That was me, Steve.
So you know what? If that's you out there, smash that subscribe button so we can do this all over again at the next milestone. So in our last episode, mechanic Steve trailered Maggie around to 4 different body shops in an epic 9-hour day. So there were a number of you, after watching the video, actually took the time to comment on which body shop we should go with. After much consideration, I decided to go with British Body and Coach Works up in Fitzwilliam, New Hampshire. So now it's actually time to prepare Maggie and get her ready for the body work and turn her into a rolling chassis. Now, before we head down to the garage, Rich, do you have a story you can tell us about an MGB?
Sure, I had a girlfriend in high school that had a classic red MGB. It was a phenomenal car. I really loved that car.
And what'd you like about the car, Rich?
It was just a visceral experience. I mean, it drives so low to the road, you could feel the road, you felt the bumps, you could smell the fuel, the engine growled every time you pushed it a little bit.
So you're actually kind of part of the driving experience.
Absolutely.
So what do you drive now?
A Lexus ES350.
How do they compare?
No comparison.
Yeah.
Lexus is a nice car, but it's boring.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And so, what happened to the girl?
She unfortunately drove off with the love of my life.
The girl?
The car. No. Unfortunately. Sad but true.
This man has a love for MGBs, obviously.
I do.
So before we head down to the garage, I just want to thank Rich for coming into the studio.
Thank you.
And I want to thank all of our subscribers that got us to the 1,000th subscriber mark. Thank you so much for tuning in and continuing to support the channel. And now let's head down to the garage to understand Mechanic Steve's thoughts on how we're going to turn Maggie into a rolling chassis. Hey, thanks, Studio Steve, and Happy New Year to you as well. You know, I couldn't agree more with you, Studio Steve. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of you out there who actually tune in and, more importantly, have subscribed to get Maggie's Makeover to the 1,000 subscriber mark. You know, in the garage, we don't celebrate accomplishments by drinking champagne. We just crack open a nice ice-cold beer. Oh God, that's good. Even though it's 9:38 in the morning, it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. Now, as Studio Steve said, our next chunk of work is to actually have the body and paint work done on Maggie. Now, in order to do that, there's a ton of things that have to come off of this car to essentially take her from an engine and transmissionless car to a rolling chassis. And there are basically 4 areas that we're going to look at. It's the interior of the car, the engine bay, the trunk, and all of the bright work on the car. All of the pieces and components have to come off so that the body can be sandblasted and then painted. So over the course of the next several months, we'll be doing that. We're going to put these together in some nice bite-sized videos for you all out there in case you're thinking about doing it on your car and you want to know how. So specifically, let's take a look at those 4 areas where the disassembly is going to occur. So as far as the interior is concerned, we're going to remove these 2 seats, followed by the console. I'll probably then remove this convertible top. And once that's done, we're going to look at removing the door paneling, the kick panels, and all of the carpet. Now, once that's complete, our focus is going to move to the front dashboard area of the car. And there are 3 things that need to come out. And I'm not so quite sure of the sequencing on those, but we'll figure it out. There's the windscreen, there's the dashboard, and then there's the wiper motor mechanisms that is actually underneath the car. So that's what we've got to do in the interior of the car at a high level. Let's go take a look underneath the hood and see what needs to be done there. So when it comes to underneath the hood of the car, there are a number of things that need to be disassembled and removed. So let's break this down step by step, starting first with the driver's side, and then we'll move over to the passenger side. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the fuel lines, starting here, the one that connected to both of the carburetors, following that all the way back down to the gas tank. Once that's done, we're going to focus on the braking system. And so this distribution connection point here, we're going to remove the lines into it and out of it, as well as this unit. That should allow us then to get to the pedal box. We're going to disassemble that and remove both the master brake and clutch cylinder. The last thing on this side of the car that we're going to remove is the throttle cable. So now let's step over to the passenger side of the car and go through those items. So when it comes to the passenger side of the car, we're first going to start with removing any of the lines that come into and out of this charcoal canister unit. That'll be followed by removing the charcoal canister unit itself. Now with all of these lines gone, including the fuel and the brake lines, that's going to give us access to removal of the heater box. Once that heater box is removed, we're going to remove the starter solenoid, the fuse box, the windshield wiper fluid motor, and followed by the coil. Once those are out, we're going to remove the speedometer cable that's down there, and although you can't see it, the oil cooler up front and the horns. Now, after we remove all of the bright work, we'll probably circle back around and remove the wire harness because there'll be nothing connected to it. So that's what we're going to do underneath the hood of the car. Let's take a look at what needs to be done in the trunk area. So unlike the interior and underneath the hood of the car, there's not really a lot of things that need to be removed when it comes to the trunk. Although I will say that I'm a little bit concerned with the filler neck of the new tank that was installed. Painting in and around that may require for us to drop the new tank that was previously installed. Other than that, it's really the line to the separation tank itself, this light switch, and perhaps the wire harness that runs throughout the back of the car. So that's pretty much it on what needs to be removed from the trunk area. Let's take a look at what removing all of the bright work entails. Now, when it comes to removing the bright work or chrome work on the car, we're going to start first by removing the directionals, both the front and side lamps. We're then going to remove the trim ring around the front headlight and the front headlight itself. Once that's done, we're going to move to take off the front bumper and this fish mount grille. And my favorite, the parking pass from my first job in 1981 as a mechanical research engineer at the Army Mechanics and Materials Research Center in Watertown, Massachusetts. Yes, that's coming off. Moving back on the car, we're going to remove the antenna, the front chrome air intake ring, and although you can't see it, the British Leyland badging on the side of the car. Now, I'm very conflicted. Should I put this back on the car, given that it was British Leyland that actually killed the MG company? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Once that's done, we're going to take off the body side molding, the mirrors, the door handles, the door locks. That'll take us to the back of the car, where we're going to remove the rear bumper, the rear lights, the reverse lights, and the side lamps. And last but least, the trunk latch. Now, once that's done, Maggie is going to be a rolling chassis ready to be put on the trailer and brought up to British Body and Coach Works in Fitzwilliam, New Hampshire, to be put on a rotisserie and to have the bodywork and painting done. And finally, when we think about the sequencing of this work, we're going to do it in the order we just discussed. So that means we're going to start with the interior, then move underneath the hood, swing around to the rear trunk, and then take all of the bright work off. You know, normally in these videos I say, that's the approach, now let's get to work. But I'm not going to do that in this video because I'm going to take the time to savor the rest of this 16-ounce beer on behalf of the 1,000 subscribers that are now part of Maggie's Makeover. Back to you, Studio Steve. So that's a wrap for this episode of Maggie's Makeover. Make sure you tune in to our next episode where Mechanic Steve actually starts to strip the interior out of Maggie. Hey, so Rich, what are you doing with these 2 bottles of champagne?
Well, they're empty.
But I didn't get any.
Sorry about that, but there were a few hundred outtakes. I was gonna say 1,000. I'm telling you, if you're doing anything with an MGB, if you want to just drive it, you want to restore it. Wow, that was a good shot.
Yeah.
Tune
Great year.
into
It was a great year.
Tune into the channel.
So Rich, what do you actually like about the channel now that you've watched a few of the episodes?
It's so fucking funny.
Keep going.
But it's engaging, and you present everything. I tell you, the shot was perfect. You gotta work that in because that was perfect. That's going right to the camera.
We have to do this again.
I know, but somehow you gotta splice that in.
I have to go get another bottle of champagne.
That was perfect.
I guess I'm drinking champagne tonight. It's the beer, it's not me.